meeting order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, indivisible, with liberty and justice for the United States.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular council meeting for November 20th. Councilors, I urge you to point your microphones closer. Like some people not being able to hear us. Okay, following the Pledge of Allegiance, first item would be approval of the agenda. And I do got one change I would like to make tonight. That would be to move action item A in front of discussion item A. So we can get this gentleman dealt with and send him on his way. Otherwise, I believe I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve this evening's agenda, moving item 4A in front of item 3 discussion items.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve tonight's agenda with one change, and that is to move action item A in front of discussion items. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Council? Okay, a lot of people here tonight. I'll read off our sort of new guidelines here. At the request of the public, town staff, and members of the governing body, in order to expedite business and conduct a more efficient, orderly meeting, the guidelines listed below will be followed at Edgewood Town Council meetings. These are the guidelines for the public. The public is asked to remain silent throughout the meeting so all attendees can hear what is being said. The public will be heard from only at public comment, which is limited to 2 minutes per individual. If a member of the governing body wishes to hear from a member of the public seated in the audience, the mayor will ask the remainder of the governing body whether they wish to hear from the individual. If there is an objection, the member of the public will not be heard from. The public is encouraged to contact members of the governing body prior to the meeting to express their opinions and concerns, which will enable the governing body to achieve its purposes and expedite business. Cursing, name calling, and any type of verbal abuse will not be tolerated. If recording devices used by interfering with the quality of the sound of the meeting, those devices will be required to be turned off. Guidelines for the governing body. The presiding officer, mayor, or mayor pro tem controls access to the floor. It is out of order to speak unless granted the floor except for point of order or certain privileged motions. For each action item on the agenda, the first utterance from a councilor will be the statement of a motion, enabling the discussion to stay focused on the action to be decided. There is no need to obtain the floor to second the motion. When a motion that is in order has been moved and seconded, the chair formally places the question before the assembly by stating the question. The chair states the exact motion and indicates that it is open to debate. Traditionally, the person making the motion initiates discussion debate on the matter, and debate discussion must be confined to the question before the body. All debate must be addressed to the presiding officer and not to the members. Debate must be confined to the question before the body. One member should not interrogate another member or person speaking from the public except through the chair. The presiding officer or the body may set reasonable time limits in debate. Time may be extended or limited upon a motion of the body. It is the right of every member who notices a breach of the rules to insist on their enforcement, thereby calling upon the chair for a ruling and enforcement. Okay, that done. Next item then is our consent agenda. Council, I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda, removing item J for discussion.
Got a second?
I don't know how to do this. I would like to make a friendly amendment. I would like to pull item A, the town council meeting minutes, for a slight edit.
Okay.
Okay, so we can then approve the agenda minus item A and item J. And further discuss them. and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council. Okay, Councilor Holly, yours is first. What's the
Town council meeting minutes from November sixth, on page 4 at the very bottom is a line that states Mayor Bassett made a motion to adjourn the meeting of November 6th. He didn't make the motion. The motion was stated up above. Councilor Holly made the motion to adjourn. Councilor Abrams seconded it. So I would suggest that last line be changed to read, Mayor Bassett adjourned the meeting of November 6, 2019 at 8:20 p.m.
okay?
Mayor, I also have a change, on page 1 of the minutes at the bottom where the public comment on general matters. I know that this now has the names of the public that spoke, but we are still missing the content of what they said. And I do think just considering, that Karen Kaiser had brought up a really important one, which was a violation of our nepotism ordinance, that should be reflected here in the minutes, in the public record.
Rest of the council feel that way?
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
So with those two changes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for November 6th, 2019.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made and approved to approve the town council meeting minutes for November 6, 2019. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And Councilor Abraham, your one on J.
I have questions just about the sampling. Is this sampling occurring only at the plant, or are we also checking, when I was going through some previous minutes, I saw that one of the comments was to bring the people who are dumping waste into the sewer into compliance. Are those compliance testings being done?
I've checked with that.
Okay, and then, I'll put this under comments later. Okay, thank you.
Motion.
So there's no answer as to if the sampling is happening at the commercial collection sites?
I don't have an answer for you tonight. I talked to Mike Garcia.
Okay,
Do you want to go ahead and approve the report?
yes,
Is that a motion?
yes.
Got a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the wastewater report for the month of October 2019. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council. That brings us then to our change of the agenda. That would be the action item A, discussion, consideration, and action on the recommendation to appoint K.R. Scott to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the town of Edgewood. Mr. Scott's back there. Why don't you come on up and introduce yourself?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you probably remember me from 2 weeks ago. I stand out a wee bit, so I'm here again tonight as a potential member of the Parks and Rec group, and I would really love to be able to do that. It's one of our Lions projects, and I would like to be able to sort of fuse our Lions energy with the town's purpose.
Council have any questions? Mr. Scott? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion to approve the appointment of Mr. Scott to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board in the town of Edgewood.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the appointment of K.R. Scott to the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Discussion.
Yeah, hang on. We'll do this one on a roll call vote when the time comes. Go ahead.
Since she made the motion, you can talk first, I guess, is the rule, so.
Did we get a second on it? Okay, motion's been made, second.
Okay, so on this one, I just would like an explanation. I really appreciate Mr. Scott coming here and being willing to serve, and so this is nothing, of course, against you personally, but when I did attend the last Parks and Rec meeting, there were some people there who had shown up, Mr. Seegers was one of them, who weren't aware that they had been, I guess, taken off the committee. And it was very confusing because they came here and they were ready to, be on the committee. And the director didn't really know about it and everyone was confused. So I would like an explanation on that. And I guess I'm just objecting to removing long-term members and then not notifying them and then bringing someone new forward.
Nobody was dismissed, their terms expired. And so he's come forward tonight offering to be on there, so we got an opening to put him on it.
And they did express that they still wanted to serve. And if it's okay with you, Mayor, I would like to ask Mr. Seegers to have a word.
No, that's what we do that.
I think you have to ask the governing body if they're, if they are
Well,
willing to let Mr. Seegers talk.
There's nothing on the agenda though for doing that tonight. It's just a thing of their appointments have expired. We're looking for some other people.
Well, they were still willing to serve, and they weren't notified that they were removed. And I just think that in the rules that you read earlier, it said that you could ask to speak. Excuse me, I have the floor.
Actually, point of order.
Yeah.
I believe we are in an action item, not a discussion item, and that a motion and second is before us. I call the question.
Just a minute, it is discussion, consideration, and action, and I haven't got a chance to make my discussion. My question based on what Counselor,
I'm sorry, but I have the floor here. So I need to appeal your decision because in the rules that you read earlier said that council members could ask to hear from a member of the public or a member of the governing body, and that the governing body has to vote on that. So I would like to hear from Mr. Seegers about what's happening with the Parks and Rec.
We had to vote with the governing body.
I'm just saying that's what I would like.
Start on that is Counselor Armio,
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams. Counselor Holly.
Not surprising. Not surprising.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we need any comments. Thank you. You will have your moment.
Mr. Mayor, can I have my?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My question is, how many openings do we currently have on the Parks and Rec
I believe
to
there
be
are
filled?
2 left.
2 left. And can you give me the names of who is currently serving?
Roxy Carpenter's one of them, then Will Beck is one. And I don't recall the 3rd person.
Does anybody know?
Or Ralph Hill, I think.
Well, no. So if we approve Mr. Scott tonight, we have 1 opening left? Okay. Thank you.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor. Do it with a roll call vote. Start here, Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams.
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Armio.
Nay.
Counsel. Okay. Thanks, sir. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
first item up on discussion items is an update from Santa Fe County Treasurer's Office, Patrick Varela, Treasurer, regarding the Santa Fe County Outreach Program. Patrick, come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Patrick Varela. I'm the Santa Fe County Treasurer. I've been coming up here religiously, I guess you could say, for the past 6 years in a row. This is my 7th year. And I'm just announcing our outreach program. It's held at the Senior Center. And we've already been here on Monday, so we're already here once. And I brought some extra flyers because I also have the spring schedule over here, so you can see that we'll be here again. And the schedule is already made out, so they won't change. We were here on the 18th. We're going to be here again on December 2nd and December 9th. So either myself, I want to introduce my new deputy, Jennifer Manzanares. I know she was here in the spring, but those of you that don't know her is Jennifer Manzanares, my new deputy. I also wanted to discuss briefly, I know you have a packed house, about House Bill 407, which impacted a lot of the mailings. It didn't impact this area. It impacted about 8,000 residents from Pojoaque North. So they haven't received their bill yet because in that legislation, it said that any kind of municipal election, school board questions were made on the November ballot, and after the referendum, they were to be either added or subtracted off of the bills. You know, if they're either passed or they won't, or they wouldn't be. So Pojoaque School District had a levy question. Espanola had a levy question, and one that impacted Santa Fe, Rio Rival, and Taos was a Northern New Mexico college. And that one, there was an issue because the clerk, I understand the clerk, or somewhere in Taos County, did not put it on the ballot. So there's going to have to be, somebody's got to make a decision on that, but it doesn't really impact Edgewood in a sense that you might be a little bit late on some of the distributions. Not, you know, you'll get the money. It's just that all of the money, because it's all collectively, that little portion might come in January instead of December, the huge amounts that come in, just because I had to delay it. And if everybody looked at their bill really closely, the due dates were a month. So you get forgiven a month. So they were actually due December 10th and became delinquent January 11th. So that's the status on that bill. And so it's supposed to have been a 50-year cleanup. They really didn't talk to any of the county members that have to do anything from the clerk, because the clerk has to redistribute everything. The assessor, of course, the treasurer's office that bring in the money. Some of that bill, the people that actually watch it, some of that bill was actually turned over in the Supreme Court because some of it in the language, they infused constitutional law, which they forgot about, and it was actually extending some commissioners instead of 4 years, 6 years. So they overturned that because they found it illegal, but they didn't overturn this part. So this is how it's going to be. They said it's going to impact again Santa Fe County in 2022. So what it's going to impact, I won't know at that point. But if best people go out for the school boards go for mill levy questions. So right now, they've been coming in. So we haven't really noticed a frequency and a slowdown in the money coming in. So a lot of people, they get the bill and they go in right away and pay it no matter what. So that's where we're at on that bill, and of course the extension of the due date. And with that, I yield for any questions, comments.
Other questions from Mr. Draw? Okay, that was it.
Thank you. I'm gonna leave these with here. If anybody wants any, they have the full outreach schedule. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda then would be introduction of the 2019 Land Use Comprehensive Plan of the Town of Edgewood, presented to the governing body by Mayor Rubin from Mr. Cog and members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee of the Town of Edgewood. The intent is to present the plan to members of the governing body, and then at a future council meeting bring forward a resolution asking the members of the governing body if they will accept and adopt the comprehensive plan.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for having me here tonight to speak about the comprehensive plan. If I may, I'd like to briefly recap what has happened with the project so far up to this point, and then stand for questions. So the project kicked off in July of 2018. We have an 18-month contract, the town and the Mid-Region Council of Governments, meaning that the end of the contract comes up in January. The comprehensive plan, just to remind you all, is a vision document that's adopted by resolution. So nothing in this plan, this is not an implementation plan exactly. So all of the things that would be through the goals and objectives of this plan have been the hopes of the community to be adopted and to be implemented. And those would all happen through final actions of the council at future points through ordinances on specific items. So this isn't actionable in itself, if that makes any sense. So we usually assemble a working group to assist with the process and provide some local input. And we began this process with a working group comprised largely of the planning and zoning commissioners. We had a planned kickoff meeting on September 11th of 2018, where we introduced a public questionnaire that was online, that was open for 1 month to the public, that we did our best to advertise. We received 432 responses in that period, and the results and the many write-in comments from this questionnaire were compiled into a report that's available. Subsequently, 3 public workshops were held to delve into the questionnaire results and develop goals and objectives for the plan with the assistance of the public. Once those were somewhat in place, we had a 3-hour workshop on April 12th of 2019 to vet action strategies that would help us implement the goals and objectives. Then the town council passed the action strategies and a slightly amended version of the goals and objectives by resolution on June 19th, 2019. The goals and objectives were adopted unanimously with 1 nay vote on the action strategies. Town council also assisted in ranking the action strategies by a preferred time frame of implementation, and these are included in the plan along with the resolutions adopting the goals and objectives. The other plan elements were compiled between June and now with the intent of reflecting what was in the goals and objectives of the plan. And the plan was recommended to Town Council by Planning and Zoning Commission on November 12th of this year. And today, as you know, the plan draft is a discussion item before you. So I'd love to stand for any questions.
Council have any questions for Ms. Rubin?
I do have one question, Mayor. One of the questions that I see on the very first page, table of contents, under community profile, I see that you've addressed solid waste disposal, which the town doesn't do. You've addressed stormwater management, which the town doesn't do, and water supply, which the town doesn't have. But the one thing I see missing is a wastewater treatment plant. Any information about that at all, I didn't find in the comprehensive plan.
I know that the wastewater treatment plant is identified on a map on page 42, and let's see. Water supply. We have solid waste disposal.
Right, which the town doesn't have.
Well, services provided to the town, so whether the town does it or not, we wanted to include what happens in the town.
I guess my comment is just that I think we need to have some kind of comprehensive plan about what are we gonna do with the wastewater plant. You know, some kind of thought process as to where we're gonna design it, what its intended use is. I know that was previously discussed when the plant was built, and so to see nothing here is concerning to me.
So I know it was addressed in the goals and objectives in a general way. Let me try and find that though. But the intent of that would be a future plan that would focus on that specifically, I believe, but let me try and find that item.
Yeah, that is one of our main focuses right now.
Goal D of the comprehensive plan's goals and objectives on page 69. Plan for its future wastewater treatment needs, and there are 2 objectives under that. But if we didn't spend a blurb on it in the comprehensive plan, that could be included.
Right. Well, I guess the objective is just to study how to best address wastewater management, and that they will identify future wastewater treatment needs of the commercial areas. It doesn't say anything here about the residential plan that's going out there.
The residential plant?
The sewer to the residential areas.
That didn't come up in our discussions as, if that's an oversight, I'm happy to address it.
Yeah, that's been the main focus of the wastewater collection system lately, is to residential areas.
All right, thank you.
Wow, I can't believe that wasn't brought up. I do have,
I'm finished.
I do have a couple things, Mayor. First, I wanted to say that I'm really concerned about the nepotism issue. I wish it wasn't like this, just with the mayor having appointed Cheryl Huppert's and being a first cousin against the nepotism ordinance. And so this, I have the floor, Counselor Abrams.
We were discussing the comprehensive plan.
You yet again interrupt me. If you let me finish, I will let you know the relevance of this.
Does
So,
it have something to do with the comprehensive land use plan?
absolutely. You heard from Mr. Cog. Thank you, by the way, for being out here to answer our questions. You heard that the critical part of the committee on this was P&Z. And it really just has the appearance of impropriety to have a family member appointed against our own ordinance and kind of tainting this process. So I really do think that we need an independent commissioner to take a look at this when some of the other information is looked at. So that's my comment on nepotism and how that relates to the comprehensive plan. I just feel like it has the appearance of impropriety and undue influence into this process. That's why we have that ordinance. Secondly, the master plan that was from 2014 does refer to utilities, and it's in contradiction to what this comprehensive plan says. So in 2014, they did say that traditional existing utilities will be expanded to accommodate projected growth, and that there would be an emphasis on water conservation, etc. And then also there's a section of that master plan on page 31 that talks about utilities and specifically water. And it's in no way does it recommend taking over our private water system that's working just fine the way it is without government intervention. But then third, I do need to point out that the wording in here has been changed from what we saw last. And that's really concerning to me. It's, for example, on page, for example on page 37 where it's talking about the PER, which we haven't even been able to discuss as council, for EPCOR, it says the town of Edgewood hired Wilson and Company to develop a preliminary engineering report to assess the feasibility of the EPCOR water system purchase. The recommendation of the PER is to use eminent domain to obtain the facility. I cannot believe that is in here. You guys told me that EPCOR and the condemnation was not a topic in this process at all.
When did you hear that?
At the meeting here, when you guys presented it.
If I may, this was information obtained online that's publicly available, and that was the recommendation in that. If you think this is too strongly worded or incorrect, and that's what we're here to discuss, and I'd be happy to make changes as the council sees fit.
Yeah, thank you. And last time you were here, you were very accommodating too, and I know you have a tough job because not all counselors feel the same. But we did discuss at that time that was not part of the process, that it wasn't even mentioned and discussed. And a couple of people came up to me after the meeting and confirmed that to me. And so I had thought that was not going to be part of this comp plan. Another one of my concerns is that we all gave the years on these goals and objectives. We all emailed you and gave you that, and I had added one in here for working with private entities, or having a goal for working with public-private entities, nonprofits, things like that, in the hopes to work with EPCOR, and that would be an ongoing thing. But somehow, it's in here as 10 to 20 years off. And that's just not reasonable that we wouldn't be working with other stakeholders until 10 to 20 years from now. That
What page are you looking at, Counselor?
doesn't even make sense.
So the timeframe rankings were provided or ranked by the council, and I tallied them as they came in. If that's something that the council would like to change at this time, again, that's up to the council.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. Did you include mine as well?
Anything from that meeting with the resolution that was approved should be in here, and if there's a mistake, happy to fix it, but that should be what's in here.
Well, my email went to Ms. Martin.
Yeah.
And I forwarded it on.
I know, I'm not saying you didn't, I'm just saying that I didn't email you directly.
My comments, some of them were never, I don't know if that was considered or not. I think some of these I had that we should never do. Did you take that into consideration?
I did it as a straight vote, so those didn't win out.
Okay.
So I guess for discussion purposes, does council agree that we wouldn't be collaborating with private entities until 10 to 20 years away?
What page is that on?
I don't have it right in front of me, I'll look.
Uh,
It's the one that we added.
For long-range water needs, I have objective 1, strategy, third bullet point. Town will collaborate with private entities where appropriate, and that is listed as 10 to 20 years. So if
Page
that's okay.
69 at the top, goal C, objective 1. The third bullet point I felt was very important to add so that we could collaborate with EPCOR or EBRA or any other entity for that matter. And I was just really shocked to see that was put at that far off.
Mayor, may I ask Maida a question?
Sure.
Maida, the tallies in the time frame was what we were given by council, is that correct?
Yes.
So these tallies, the answers that we have in the time frame are based on what we got from them.
The vote of the ranking by the council, that's
Thank
what
you.
it should reflect.
So if there were 3 that wanted one time frame and 1 that wanted another, the other one was disregarded? Okay.
It was as a vote, yes.
So this must mean that Mayor Bassett, Councilor Hawley, and Councilor Abrams wanted this to be 10 to 20 years off? Because I heard you say that you didn't. Is that what that means? Do you guys agree, or was
I've
this a
slept since then,
typo,
Counselor.
or?
I don't know what I voted on the thing.
Well, if this is something we can change, I guess we can talk now about making it ongoing like the other two, rather than 10 to 20 years, if that's agreeable to council.
Say, vote came in the way she tallied it up. What's wrong with that?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to hear from Councilor Holly and Councilor Abrams on this topic.
I would like to say, this has been in the making for 18 months. We had an online survey that the public participated in. There were meetings here that were very well attended by the public. Our P&Z commission has put a lot of time and effort into it, as has Mr. Cobb. This isn't something one-off that we've never done before. We've done comprehensive plans in the past, and at the direction and the guidance and the facilitation of Mr. Cobb. We had our vote. The contract ends in January. I think there was plenty of time for input. I don't know if you folks had attended any of the meetings, but I did. And
Well, some of this we're seeing for the first time. Put together
But
like
there's
this.
new wording in here now.
I did not sit down and compare page to page. I had confidence in the folks that were doing this survey.
And that is sort of the thing. Maida has written it up now. So this is what she came up with.
So Mayor, I know that Councilor Holly is bringing up some general points here, but this goal C1 objective, the third bullet, town will collaborate with private entities where appropriate. That's really the part that I'm questioning. Don't we need to put that as ongoing?
There are other changes that need to be made, right? We do need to address the residential wastewater.
If there are changes the council would like to see, that's what we're here to discuss.
Okay. So I think now would be a good time for us to discuss that time frame on working with current utilities. I think it should be an ongoing process.
I think it should be ongoing, and I think we really need to remove that sentence about the PDR on page 39, I think it is, because council has not even had the opportunity to see that and discuss it. And suddenly it just ends up in here as if that was the recommendation from them. And, you know, I think that PDR is pretty complicated. I don't think anyone has concluded that there's a recommendation to take over the water system by eminent domain.
The other point is that PR has not officially been adopted by this council. So it should not be, as far as I'm concerned, should not be part of this study if it has not been adopted by this council.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you happen to recall on what they're worried about on the ongoing or 10 to 20 years? Do you remember what the exact question was? Because I can't recall, like the choices that they had.
Sure, it is in the plan. It is on page 66. The options were short range, 1 to 5 years, medium range, 5 to 10 years, long range, 10 to 20 years, and ongoing.
Thank you.
I just want to say too that this comp plan is the responsibility of this governing body, not just everyone else who worked on it. So it is important that we do our due diligence and listen to the public, listen to what they want and don't want, and then make sure that that's reflected properly in this plan. And, you know, just because other people worked on it doesn't mean that we don't have the responsibility to thoroughly look at these things and make sure that the vision casting that this governing body is doing is reflected in here. I mean, it's really important, because this drives the direction of our town, you know, the future of our town. And if administration is adding language in here about not working with private entities until 10 years away, and, you know, stuff about the condemnation being recommended, well, I've heard loud and clear from the public that that's not what they want. And this should reflect what the public wants.
Well, it should most definitely not be based upon a PER that has not been brought before this council for discussion.
The PER though is on the website where people can look at it.
Maybe so, but it has not been accepted by this council. We can't even get you to bring it for discussion. So maybe when we do, we can put it in the comp plan.
Still, it does exist, and it is out there.
So I know this is just a discussion item at this point, but I do think, especially with the tainted process that it went through and the undue influence against our nepotism ordinance, that it really needs to go back to with an independent commissioner and take a look at what the public really wants, because, you know, I've heard from them many times now, and it doesn't seem to be reflecting that. Another issue that Councilor Abraham is bringing up, the public does not want residential sewer hookups. That's not reflected in here.
So my comment on this objective number 1, town will collaborate with private entities where appropriate. I think it's unfair to say we're not going to cooperate with them or collaborate with them for at least 10 more years. I mean, I think they have the right to expect us to be cooperating with them now. You know, how are we going to plan where the gas line is going to go? How are we going to plan where development's going to go if we're going to wait for 10 years to discuss this with private entities? Because the only utility we
The
own,
one on 69,
yes,
and that's for long-range water needs, not gas line.
so we're not going to plan any water needs for 10 years?
No.
Right, we don't have one, so we absolutely have to work with the private entities if we're gonna have water anywhere in our town that it isn't currently there.
What would you prefer, Maida?
What would I prefer?
Yeah, in other words, a motion or something?
So since it's a discussion item tonight, I believe all changes could be, done at the next, should the plan be adopted, it can be with all of the conditions. That might be a clean way to do it.
So you'll bring this forth again at the next time with changes we recommended?
I want you to be able to see the changes first. So, Mr. Mayor, would it make more sense for me to make the changes? Well, Tanya.
Since it is a draft, I think you could probably work up some changes that are told to you tonight. You can look at them.
I would like the public to have the opportunity to weigh in on one plan versus a couple iterations.
Yeah.
So however that makes the most sense to you all. But I'm happy to make changes, propose changes for you in a different document.
Do you want the committee to get together again?
It's just the several changes, correct? So, and it depends what you would like to see, but what I wrote down so far, wastewater to residential areas, but I feel like it was put forth that that is not a desire. I
Right,
feel like
but
that's
it's
why it was
happening.
not reflected in the goals and objectives from what we got from the public input. But I can touch on that if that's a desire of the council. And a little more information on the wastewater plant. And then the page 69, C1 bullet 3 timeframe, if the council wishes to change that. And then page 37, the sentence about the PER, if you'd like that removed. Those are the 3 I have written down.
Do we need to revote on the time frame?
I'll leave that up to the council.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make one point on page 37 under water supply. We keep focusing on the PER information that's in there, but that paragraph goes on to say, comprehensive plan survey respondents voice strong opinions on both sides of the issue. See questionnaire report. Goal C of this comprehensive plan is to plan for the long-range water needs of the community. It was generated from discussions in the public workshops about this divisive topic in order to bring attention to the need for long-range water planning, regardless of how the town decides to proceed in terms of that core. So there is more than just the PER mentioned there.
In the written comments, there was a lot on the water issue. We know it's a divisive topic, and that it is particularly important at the moment. And there was a lot of passion on both sides from the written comments. I'd refer you to those, but yeah, if any of the language you'd like to see changed, I'll leave that up to the council.
Well, I think we need to remove the recommendation of the PER since the PER has not been adopted by this council.
I also really object to referencing this questionnaire because the questionnaire was worded very tricky. It did not say, would you like the town to take our private water system by eminent domain? It didn't say that. You cannot say that there were strong opinions for it when the survey wasn't even worded that way. The public that was responding to that was probably just clicking through and had no idea that that was the intent behind that question.
Let me refine that question for you. And I apologize if you found the language tricky, that was not the intent.
Well, if you wanted to know if the public was in favor of taking over EPCOR, you should have asked if the public was in favor of taking over EPCOR. You should have worded it in like a general way and then expect them to understand your intent and then refer to that over here in this report as if the public really did speak out for it. And in contradiction to that, it's saying that it was generated from discussions in the workshops, but Ms. Hubbard and Ms. Bird confirmed to me after last meeting that that topic did not come up.
So the survey results, the questionnaire was used to guide the discussions on the goals and objectives for the comp plan in the workshops, and everyone who attended the workshops hoped thoroughly that the language, that was the methodology.
Can you read us that question?
Yes, let me find it for you. So the question read, Edgewood needs to develop its own water system.
Which is somewhat different than hostile takeout of a privately owned water company.
If the intent is mistaken, the language can be changed. We do our best.
You know, it is very different to say, does Edgewood need to start its own water company? I mean, people can say, look at that as, do you want paved roads in Edgewood? You know, it's just a general question. But if you say, do you want to go $14 million into debt to pay for something that you already have twice, you know, they probably wouldn't have answered that question that way. So it's really misleading. It's very misleading.
It's been around a long time.
And, you know, the meetings that we've had, the public is clearly not for it. So I just don't think this comp plan should be saying that it is.
I don't know that the public has said that.
We're not.
Mayor, may I say something?
Go ahead.
I'm just a little concerned as to why the goals and objectives, when this survey monkey has already been out there, why the goals and objectives were passed unanimously and you motioned to approve them. You had this information then and you didn't have a problem with it then. Why now?
Because the language has been changed.
The goals and objectives and action strategies are exactly the same.
What I'm
So the
objecting
PDR was mentioned to it, we can take that out, if that is the big thorn tonight. But I don't want to see this thing hijacked over something so small. This is an important document that we need. We need this for economic development, and I'm gonna fight for this. It's a good product. We did a good job. And we had, look at that picture. We had the public, we had the majority of the people who get up and say a lot. They were there. Jerry Powers was there. So we've listened to them, and that's the product right there. What you have, that's what we came up with.
But not all this worrying about the PDR and F4.
Okay, so we'll take the PDR out.
And the other
But
thing
the
that I'm
Survey
objecting
Monkey,
to
you
is
had
the
that
10 to
information.
20 years.
You had that information, and you never said a thing.
What are you talking about, never said it?
You never said anything about the language in that Survey Monkey until tonight, and you guys approved it unanimously, the goals and objectives.
Well, because it's referencing it right here, and when I hear what it says, that's contradictory. If you're using that as evidence, then I can question that now. That's okay. It should be fine for me as a governing body member to question anything in here. It's a very important document, and it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate all of the hard work I do. I appreciate staff, I appreciate everyone that's worked on this, but it's important to get it right and be reflective of what the public wants. And I don't think they want us to wait 10 years to work with other stakeholders. I don't.
What other questions do you have or objections?
I think Veda has covered mine.
So probably some work needs to be done on the vision of wastewater.
Or at least acknowledge that it's currently being built to residential areas. We spent a tremendous amount of money on a map to design this to residential areas. And that needs to be reflected in this document. And I think the map should be included.
But if that's not what people want, why would we include it?
Well, because it is currently, it's what we paid for. It's what we're currently building.
But if that's not the vision, then
It's not the vision, but just like all of these other maps that are in here, it's the current status.
The aim was to reflect current conditions and give the town a snapshot of things happening in Edgewood and the services provided. So
Right.
I'm happy to add anything that was left out.
Okay, because wastewater is currently active. Are we not currently building wastewater lines to residential areas? Did we not, wasn't that the last project we just finished? Isn't that the design of our entire thing is to residential?
Not everything.
But that is the design, that there is a map that shows that, correct? I would just like to see it included as something we're currently
Where
doing.
would you put it at, Counselor?
I would put it with the other maps back there.
Yeah, but where's the
I would-
verbiage?
I would, right here under community facilities, you've got solid waste disposal, you've got stormwater management. There is nothing about wastewater. I would also put it back here in like some of our,
Which page?
that was page, that's the table of contents. I would put it, right here between page 35 and 36. That shows solid waste disposal, stormwater management, and then you go to the water service areas map. I would like to see the wastewater plant mentioned here as something that the town has, and the map of where it goes. Or at least where it's designed to go, along with where it currently is.
That topic alone is huge. I mean, the former administration, I think, Councilors Abram and Abraham, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had saved up something like 1.6 million or something to fix the current plant. All that money is gone now because it's been spent on collection lines for residents who don't want it. So, I mean, it's a big topic. It's a really big topic.
I think you could probably slip something in there on wastewater.
Thank you.
Something slipped in there, I'm sorry. That's what happened this time, this got slipped in there. And I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. This is a huge thing that needs work. Don't you agree, counselors? I think you're quiet, but you know how important this document is.
Counselor Abraham pointed out where to put something. Can't they put something in there?
And then I think we do need to look at the 10 to 20 year issue, and I would like to see the PER, the reference to the PER removed. Those are my 3 comments. We will then have the opportunity to look at it again, and
Would the council like me to make these changes in a different document, or how would you like me to proceed?
I guess write something up and, let us look at it.
Sure. Any other questions for me, or?
Do the other 2 councils have any comments?
I don't know, I would assume they would be claiming if they had it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Okay. That then brings us to public comment on general matter. I'll remind everybody this is a 2-minute thing. It looks like we got a lot of people here who want to get through it, but everybody get through it in 2 minutes. Okay, the first person up tonight is Jerry Powers.
Good evening. I'm with CORE, and we held our first public forum on November 14th at the Legacy Church. 3 of the counselors were there. Counselor Abrams and the mayor were not present. There were over 300 people at that meeting, which I think is somewhat unprecedented for 300 people to show up and discuss issues in the town. At the meeting, the public expressed overwhelming disapproval and dissatisfaction with the current style of government, which is closed and is hostile to public input. I know people talk about, well, nobody came to the meetings, but there is an obligation and duty of the town to reach out to the public and to those impacted especially by what's happened. The particular items that were the public expressed dissatisfaction about, in addition, were the EPCOR takeover, overwhelming disapproval for that. Overwhelming disapproval for residential extensions and using millions of dollars of town money to do that. There were 3 former mayors there, all three of them expressed strong approval for what we're doing with trying to open up the town and change the style of government to one that's friendly to self-government. That's the principle of democracy. That's the way it should be run. That's what the people of Edgewood expressed at that meeting. I wish that the two of you that didn't attend would have been there to hear that, but I understand that there are a lot of people here tonight that I'm sure you'll be hearing from. And I just hope, I would encourage you strongly to listen to what they have to say. It's important. These are the people who live here. Their money is what you're spending, and you're spending it on items that they don't want. So I would ask your indulgence, let them speak, and take to heart what they have to say. Thank you.
Next up is David Anderson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. David Anderson. I am a resident of Edgewood, and I'm very concerned that money from the taxpaying public is being spent without telling the public what is occurring. I am also a customer of EPCOR. I'm a very satisfied customer of EPCOR. They are responsive to my needs. They're governed by the Public Utility Commission, so it's not as though we have a rogue company that's not treating its customers well. I'm being well cared for by that company. I am not, however, being well represented by my town council. My town council wants to have a hostile takeover of a private corporation that's providing good service at a good value to its customers. I am also displeased with the fact that we're talking about putting in sewer for commercial areas, and our town is paying to run sewer to residential areas instead of fixing the treatment plant. I find that to be a gross misuse of our funds and those funds that the council has set aside for the plant. When I was in charge of a homeowners association, which was about 2/3 to 3/4 the size of the town of Edgewood in one of my last places, I would not spend a dime of my people's money without their approval. And I'm frankly appalled at the way that this is going without inputs and approval from the public. I moved back to New Mexico after my time in the Air Force because I love my state. I love the rural areas of New Mexico. That's why I live in Edgewood. I want this to be an area that is self-governed by the people, not by a small clique of 5. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Edgewood. I did attend the meeting with my husband on the 14th where the residents actually had some say and some input, and they got some facts. And we're very concerned that some of these changes proposed are going to be against the wish of the people. There's only about 6,100 residents here in the Edgewood area, and you have only 2,400 homes that may end up getting impacted by the effects of your guys' proposal. That could be significantly impossible for them to handle financially. And if this ends up in a legal litigation, who's going to pay for this? So that's what I would like to have the governing council answer. Because there's no money in the account to pay for the legal litigation that could drag on for years. So my husband and I will both disagree with the EPCOR takeover. We disagree with the mayor extending his own terms. We disagree with how the wastewater management is being handled. And I think it needs to be heard by the public. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Mayor, can you repeat her name?
Linda Hill.
Previous speaker.
Sabine Price.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, I have 2 comments to make. I understand the majority of our people here in Edgewood are totally against the takeover of the EPCOR. We're happy with EPCOR. I understand just a few councilmen are really pushing the takeover. From things I have checked into, I have found out if it is taken over, our property values are gonna go down. Our taxes are gonna be going up, and I understand our water payments will probably triple, if not more, much more than that. I'm totally against it. A lot of my neighbors are too. The other little comment I have is just strictly a rumor that I'm hearing, which has nothing to do with the water, but I understand that the town is considering vacating our little equestrian park on the frontage road. I hope that is not true. Because a lot of people in Edgewood use that park. There's events out there all the time. We have worked very hard to get that park. I actually started off with Parks and Recs many years ago, and it came through COPAC. The land was given to COPAC through Wildlife West, then it was given to the town to develop, and it took a lot of years to get that little horse park. And I think our town needs it. If we use it, the people appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Jones? I'm a new property owner at Edgewood. I went to the meeting on the 14th, and I was rather concerned at some of the things I heard. Eminent domain is to be used for the benefit of the community, not the benefit of the sitting government. Taking over Epcot, $28,000 per house seems exorbitant. Fees will go up. I have an issue with that. I understand we want to run a sewer line down West Church. I drove down there, there's 19 homes. And somebody said it was $1.8 million. Also, I have an issue with the sewer line going down Cactus, and rather than taking it down to Main Street and then tying in the RV park, and Mrs. Sterling said that there was a hotel that wanted to come in here, and they were told they didn't have the capacity. I also had an issue with them turning the line out onto your property, Mr. Bassett, and I understand that your mother owns the property at the southwest corner of Church and 344. I don't think we should have to pay for a sewer line so your family can benefit. I'm a little irritated about that. Nobody in this town wants the sewer system. I'm going to put in a $5,000 septic system, and I'm not going to be interested in changing to city sewer so you can make some money. That's not why you were elected. You were elected to represent the people of this community. I also called you, Mr. Abrams, and you never returned my phone call. If you're going to work on the council, you need to do the job. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors.
Sir, can I ask you to state your name? We're not always able to hear them.
Joe Werns. Hillcrest LLC asked me to appear tonight on its behalf to read this letter into the record. It's addressed to the town of Edgewood, to whom it may concern. Hillcrest LLC claims an undivided 20% interest in the lands located within the Hillcrest Master Plan District. Hillcrest LLC currently is in litigation with Highland Stock Farms LLC over their respective claims of interest to the land in the Master Plan District. The litigation is an outcome of the town's decision not to recognize units in the Master Plan District as legal lots of record. The court case number is First Judicial District Court, cause number D-101-CV-2019-00682. Hillcrest formally wishes to put the town of Edgewood on notice that any application or action initiated by the town or by Highland Stock Farms LLC regarding the dissolution of the Master Plan District or future subdivisions of land therein must include the interest of Hillcrest LLC until such time as the court rules in the lawsuit on the respective interests of Hillcrest LLC and Highland Stock Farm in land within that Master Plan District. Hillcrest understands that Kevin Hill has represented to the town that he is the sole manager of Highland Stock Farms LLC. He has made that representation to Hillcrest as well, but Hillcrest has not received any proof of that relationship despite having requested it. Hillcrest requested the town copy me on any future communications with Kevin Hill or any other representative of Highland Stock Farm LLC that concern the Hillcrest Master Plan District until such time as the lawsuit is resolved. Thank you for your attention. I have copies of the letter for each of you that I'll leave with the town clerk along with the original. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is Cheryl Honeycutt.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Honeycutt. My husband and I are residents of Edgewood since 2009. Our property was incorporated into the city approximately 2 years ago. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I want to go on record opposing your plan to take over Edgewood Water Company. I fail to see the benefit to our city. Edgewood has deep pockets and is willing to work with the city to continue to provide water as well as a partner investing in our community. In my opinion, a hostile takeover of the water system will lead us to bankruptcy. Another of your plans I strongly oppose is a city sewer system. Mandatory hookup for residential properties. I know that exceptions now exist for property owners who have functioning septic systems, but I'm not naive enough to ignore the fact that these exceptions could be done away with a stroke of a pen. I believe these two initiatives, if brought to fruition, would adversely affect our property values. You have been elected to serve the community. I implore you to embrace open and transparent service. Thank you.
Chris Orr.
Mayor, Council, on a lighter note, thank you for getting Horton Road done. It's very nice over there. It's nice to have clean cars. But I have to strongly oppose any sort of a water takeover of the town. When I started my career in public works 20-something years ago, I worked for a town that was very comparable to Edgewood. We had a water department. We couldn't get rid of that water department fast enough. If Edgewood thinks they can run a water department better than it's being run right now, you really need to think about that, because it's not going to happen. It's going to cost the town tons of money that we don't have. I'd rather see the money go towards other things, youth sports, recreation, whatever, but not going after a water. There's nothing wrong with EBCOR. They do fine work, and you need to concentrate on other things that really would concern the citizens. Thank you.
Paula Alexander.
Sucher.
That.
It is Sucher, S-U-C-H-E-R. Like when I did. Good evening. I guess I'm a ditto now of what has been said. And Chris beat me to thanking you for Horton. We were up here for almost the last year. Thank you. It's beautiful. The only bad side effect now are the speeders. They're at it again, especially a huge white pickup. Take care of that. And I should know, because we live, part of our property is right on the corner of there in Camino County. We are also, of course, EBCOR customers. We are very satisfied with the service, with the bills we get. No complaints at all there. If we could do something about the taste of the water, fine and dandy. That's just life living here. Of course, we are also on a septic tank. It's fine with us. Not at all interested in a hookup and the increased fees that go with that. Thank you.
Chuck Green.
Well, I'd ask the audience to hold your eggs till I'm through. Mayor, Council, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you and talk. I've lived here since 1985. Incidentally, my name is Chuck Ring. I'm a former member of the Town Council. Some of the things you see as improvements in this town were completed during past administrations. I noticed that there's a former mayor here. His family and the Bassett family have been instrumental in donating land and other things for the town's benefit and for the citizens' benefit. I don't know if I could even begin to enumerate everything that the Bassett family has contributed, but I'll start by saying if you go to the old community center, that land and the land that the fire station there is on, formerly it was a fire station, it's now a police department, and the tennis court was all donated by a member of the Bassett family. I do not try to infer lack of civic pride or lack of complete knowledge on those who attended the meeting at the church the other night, nor do I do so tonight. I'll just say this. Please do not jump to conclusions just because there's something in the works or something that is being contemplated does not mean it's going to be done. And if it can't be done in a feasible, financially responsible way, I don't see how this council would ever approve of it. So the water system, I'll just say one more thing about it. It's the foulest tasting stuff I've ever tasted. And I have a water softener, and it's still foul tasting after it comes out of the water softener. So I've lived here since '85, so I should know something about what kind of water tastes. What? Time. Very angry response, folks.
Next person is Cheryl Hubbard.
I'm Cheryl Hubbard, and I attended the meeting at Legacy Church on Thursday night. There was some truth said. I am John Bassett's first cousin. But I also heard a lot of taking out of context, a lot of misrepresentation, a lot of half-truth, and a lot of lies about our mayor. As far as Edgewood, I don't know if it's good or bad. It seems like everybody else knows all about what's going to cost. I certainly don't. Maybe it's not a good thing, maybe it is. But all these other mistruths have nothing to do with the water. They're malicious. Also, I want to thank the staff for all they do. I know they work hard in this town here. They're often treated badly by people who come in here. They're often disrespected in our meetings. They've even had their tires aired out of their tires during council meetings. So there's a hostile environment, and it's sad. And it's not just a hostile water takeover. I keep hearing that there's a lot of hostile people, and I think it needs to calm down.
Thank you.
Next up is, excuse me, Ray Seegers.
Yeah, my name is Ray Seegers. I'm a local businessman. My southern drawl will not allow me to get all the things I want to say in 2 minutes. But what I'm really worried about is transparency here. I attended that meeting with 300 of our citizens attended, well, almost packed the house. And they had a lot of concerns about the lack of transparency. I want to thank you, Mrs. Armio, for attempting to get us heard on certain subjects, but apparently we're always going to get voted down if we want to speak at all. How do I find out? Somebody tell me what's going on in this town. Who is the person that will tell me whether we're renewing the horse park agreement with Santa Fe County? And if we're not, why are we not doing it? Who's the person that will tell me, are we giving up on Section 34? Are we not, which we improved and spent money on? And we heard that through somebody who heard it from the county commissioner in Santa Fe County. But that you might not be renewing or pursuing the development of the park on Section 34, which would be a real mistake. But I don't know, that's a rumor. I mean, I heard it from various people that might know. Who do I go to in this town that's transparent, that I could spend a few minutes with and find out what you are up to and why you're doing what you're doing? The other thing that came up in that meeting was, what are you going to do with the folks? That's a regional water system you're thinking of condemning. It doesn't serve just Edgewood. 30% of it serves Torrance County. And it's the only water system available for growth in northern Torrance County. It has worried some of the county commissioners down there. What are you going to do with that? up here in El Dorado, people are treated and they have to spend more money if they're outside the district than inside. Their water bills are about double. So are we in Torrance County, since we're not in the city limits, going to be allowed to be on the water system we always counted on? Thank you. Transparency.
I'll yield my time to the speaker.
Next person is Tony Jaramillo.
Point of order, we've always done this in Edgewood meetings. She's yielding 2 more minutes to me. Could I continue?
No, sir.
So that,
Robert's rules of
You've
order.
had your chance to speak.
Oh,
Next person.
we've always done that.
Come on up, Tony.
Well, hello, I'm Tony Jaramillo Jr. And I'm not the guy in the white truck that drives speeds down the road, just to let you know. I think everybody here is pretty much concerned about the water, of course, and the sewer system. And I think they've done a very good job turning out. I was at that meeting, and we're just a concerned Edgewood citizens, you know. So hopefully the town council hears everybody that's here tonight and their Bassett. You know, we've known you guys forever, you know.
A little bit longer than that.
Right? So, knee-high to a grasshopper. You know, you used to play at the station when they were building the shop over there when you were a little kid, so. I mean, we go back a long ways, so I hate to see just weird stuff happening in Edgewood behind closed doors, so just maybe be a little more open to the public and let everybody know what's going on. Thank you.
Next person is Gerald Curtis.
For the record, Gerald Curtis. I was at that meeting that I frankly find it amusing, if I can be allowed that latitude, to hear 300 people more interested in Edgewood than 2 + 1 members of this council are here. So, I want to thank Ms. Abraham, Ms. Jaramillo, for your efforts. And I want to thank the other two and well, I won't call him a despotic mayor because I don't know him that well, but a misinformed mayor. I want to thank them for showing us how bad government can be, especially when you don't have an interest in dealing with the problems of the town. Edgewood is not a problem. City streets, snow removal, that's a problem. But apparently, it's lost its impact on the council. So, I want to support the 300 people that showed up. I want to ask the council, is there a quid pro quo? That's what we hear a lot about. I can't imagine why there are 2 people here who are steadfastly opposed to the things that reasonable councilors, and Jaramillo and Abraham are, if there were not a quid pro quo. And you don't have to look it up. Just turn on your evening news. Keep up the good work, showing us what bad government is, Mayor, and 2, showing us what good government could be by the other 2.
Nancy Adamson.
Nancy Adamson, I live in Torrance County, and I resent having tyranny shoved down my throat. I am going to have to pay taxes that don't belong to me because I live in Torrance County. And I would like to know, what rules of order do you follow? Do you follow Robert's rules? Because you denied me the privilege of giving my minutes to another speaker. Thank you very much.
Victory Hill. I've lived here for 34 years, long before this became a town. And I was at the meeting before 3 of the councilors were on this. I believe Mr. Abrams and Mr. Bassett were on it when we addressed the UPCOR issue with the council. 99% of the people at that meeting were 100% against taking over UPCOR. I personally delivered a letter to the mayor stating that I was against it as well as most of the people. It doesn't seem to be an issue with the council that 99% of Edgewood does not want EPCOR bothered. We know that it's going to cost us a fortune. We've been out here a long time. We like having our space. It's what we came here for. I don't understand when 99% of the people get up in a meeting and say it, that we're against the takeover, especially eminent domain, and all of the cost that's going to take place in trying to do it. I don't understand why we're ignored. This meeting was, I don't know, what, 2 or 3 years ago, Mayor? I got up and spoke, and everybody else got up and spoke. There was one person that spoke against it out of the whole committee or the whole group of people. So I would implore the council and the mayor to pay attention to what the people want and not worry about what they want as individuals. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Next item then is matters from the councilors. Councilor Armino.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here this evening. I really appreciate hearing from you all greatly, and I also appreciate the turnout at the meeting last Thursday and hearing from everyone there. I think public input is very critical, and it's important for us as elected officials to listen to those whom we're representing. I did want to talk about something that's come to my attention just in the last week and a half, and that is the Church Street and Main and Cactus sewer line. Now, this project and this vote happened in June of 2018. And at that time, a map was not available to us, so I did not know exactly where the lines were going, except that I was told that it was going on Cactus and Main and Church. At that meeting, I did object, Mayor, that you did not recuse yourself because of conflicts of interest. And I did know that the project was going alongside your property with a lift station there. What I did not know, which was not disclosed, and I'm incredibly upset about this, is that it went through your family's private property, not on the public roads. I voted on something that was misleading and really omitted, because you kept saying Cactus and Main, Cactus and Main, Cactus and Main. And so, without a map, and we're trusting your word here, I voted for that project. So I just wanted to express my concern with that. It's definitely against the Governmental Conduct Act, the Code of Ethics, and really should not be done. I mean, it's gain for the family, which is not appropriate in your position. Next, I did have to address something else that came to my attention in the past week, and one of the members of CORE started talking to me about the ICIP and the 344 project that we voted on as number 2 on the ICIP. And I was telling that member of the public, well, you know, that's what we talked about, what we voted on, was to go through the, 344 towards section 16 in the commercial corridor. And he said, no, that's not what it is. It's this other project that's already been planned to go into residential neighborhood. And so I reached out to Carla, and she was able to give me some information. But as it turns out, I would like a friendly amendment if council is willing to bring this to council to straighten out what exactly it was that we voted on. My impression, and even Juan and Carla's impression, was that that we voted on the ICIP was for the line to go in the commercial corridor on 344. However, that's not what it says. Apparently, the project is planned to be built out into the neighborhoods, and there's really no guarantee that that wouldn't happen if we got that money from the legislature. So I'm just requesting now that we bring it back to council so that we can clarify the language on the ICIP to reflect properly Edgewood's goal, which has always been for the commercial corridors to have utilities so that they can be here and bring the GRT here. So next, I did want to mention, Mayor, you gave out the copy last meeting of the resolution 2004-07 on how councilors can bring an item on the agenda. And I don't see that on the agenda this time yet again. I've been asking for it for over a year. But I did confirm with the previous 3 mayors that in the past, in Edgewood's precedents, one council member could bring something onto the agenda to be discussed in the public, so the public has the chance to come and hear about it. One of those things, for example, is the PER that was issued about the EPCOR takeover. So anyway, I just again want to let you know that I confirmed with 3 mayors that one council person was able to bring things and put things on the agenda. I don't think we should change that. I think we need to clarify the language on that resolution 2004-07. And then lastly, I just wanted to express how disappointed I am, Mayor. In hearing some of these things, I'm about what is and what is the truth. And I know some people have said that there's lies out there. Please show me what those lies are, because the other side has provided facts. And so if there are lies, please tell me what they are. I want to know. But as it stands right now, Mayor, everything that you accused Mayor Hill's administration of, which was conflicts of interest, malfeasance, the public being excluded, that it wasn't government for the people, of the people, that there was tone and rancor, everything you accused him of in your campaign is now happening in real life. And so I just want to tell you how just truly disappointed I am. And to anybody that has facts in contradiction, please let me know. Thank you.
Councilor Abraham.
Okay, I do have a number of things to bring forth tonight too. I did see that there's a sign on Town Hall, so it's listed. Can somebody tell me how much it's listed for?
Rate it and tell me what it was they were gonna start with.
You signed a listing agreement, but didn't know how much for?
You may have told me, I just don't remember.
Okay, can I request that be brought to the next council meeting? Thank you. The next thing is I've had multiple requests from people in the audience that they can't hear us very well all the time, especially if we turn our head to address the mayor like we need to, or something like that. I would like to see if we could look into either lapel mics or the headset mics that might make it easier for the audience to hear. The next question I have is about the current open positions we have for employment. If somebody can tell me how many open positions do we have, where are those currently being advertised, and I know we have a wastewater treatment plant operator vacant. Do we still have police vacancies?
Yeah, I can respond to that. Yes, so we have the one vacancy. We have conducted interviews and we have the lead candidate currently in background. Hopefully we'll have that background done next week or two.
Do you post those anywhere?
Yes, they're on the town website. They were on the Facebook page and the municipal league.
Okay, I did see it on the Facebook page.
Yes.
Was the janitor position that we just filled posted anywhere?
I don't know if that one was.
That was the one that we hired the chief's wife for?
Mayor Council, that was posted on the website along with the police department.
Okay, what section of the website is that posted under? Because I don't think people were aware that there was openings.
Having employment opportunities or something of that stamped on our website. I mean, that's the only place we have for employment opportunities.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Next, I would like to talk about my disappointment that the legislative breakfast was canceled. I know that you asked us back in October if we were going to be able to attend that. I think we all responded. It was on the last agenda as being scheduled for the 19th at 8:30 a.m. My concern is when I sent an email to find out if that was still happening because it wasn't listed on the town website as a quorum. I was told, yes, it was still happening, but that it needed to be canceled because it wasn't posted as a quorum. I don't know whose responsibility that was, but I'm very disappointed that now we're not, or are we going to reschedule meeting with our legislators, Mayor?
I don't know if we'll have a breakfast, we may try something else.
Okay. And then finally, the PER again. I bring up the PER because it was mentioned in this comprehensive plan as if it were a document that we have accepted, and we have not. However, when I was looking back through some emails, I did find something that I received from Ms. Salazar on July 25th of 2018. And it does say, my question was, would we need a PER to go out for a loan? She said, I can tell you they would require a PER to make any kind of loan for a capital asset to a municipality. So my question is, even though this PER has not been submitted to this council, has it been submitted to any funding agencies? And I would like a response to that at the next council meeting as well. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Abrams.
Well, thanks everybody for getting out tonight. It's nice to see a crowd here. Well, then I'll yell. Evidently I can do that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Once again, thank you all for coming out. Unfortunately, the meeting that was scheduled by CORE or by EPCOR or whoever scheduled to put that together, sent the flyers out, was at a time where I worked for a living. So I was unable to attend. And that's my apologies. To David and Cheryl Anderson, Casey Uliberry, Lisa Garcia, Marianne, and I can't pronounce her last name, Robin, Savina, Eric, all of you who sent me messages, thank you. I do read all of those. I do not necessarily always have the time to respond adequately to all of them. So I'll respond this evening. I have sat on this council now for about 11 years, give or take a nickel. And it's been my endeavor since first running for office to do the best that I can for everyone in the community. That includes you all, and everyone who is not here as well. So it is my duty to inform myself as well as is physically and mentally possible so that I can make decisions for you. You've elected me to do that. And that is what I do. So be very, very, very certain that I am considering all aspects of many of the things that are coming before me. And I will continue to do that. Something that came before me that I think the community should probably know a little bit about. I don't know who in the audience here has a solar array at their home, who is connected to Central New Mexico Electric Co-op. There's a meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. In Moriarty with regard to distributed generation accounts. If you are generating electricity with a solar panel, with a solar array at your home, you may want to attend this and listen to the discussion. The topic is how they're going to change your billing. They are talking about something called a true-up. Those of you who may have solar arrays are banking your solar energy so that it might be used during a high-use period. They're talking about making changes to how that's done. And I think it would behoove anyone here who is thinking about solar or who has solar to perhaps at least sit in and listen. There are 6 different things they are discussing on how to change how this stuff is banked. I'm going to try and make it, although it'll be tough. One other thing that I noticed just about a week ago, and that is that on Nextdoor, Councilor Abraham produced a letter, or actually a series of correspondence between she and the mayor. And I'm not going to comment on much of the content of this, except to say that it was brought to light that Councilor Abraham may or may not be a resident of the town. And I would like to see that somehow or another we bring this to resolution, because it's very concerning to me. If she is a resident of the town, great. Thank you. Good. Show me the paper.
I have a lease agreement.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. It is my floor. I think we had this discussion earlier between I and Councilor Harvey. This isn't a discussion. I'm just asking the question. If there is documentation, please bring it. Please bring it, so that I can be assured that the votes of this council are legitimate.
Where's the mayor live?
Well, if a person is sitting in office and is not a resident of the community, then they are sitting the council position illegitimately, and their votes therefore do not count. And this is a matter that needs to be brought to our Attorney General. So I would like to get this resolved as quickly as possible.
I'd like to see the mayor's documentation too. He lives with his mother.
And that's all I have for this evening.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Rodriguez.
may I produce the documents that Councilor Abrams is looking for?
Bring another time.
I have a lease for anybody who would like to see my lease at 24 Moriarty Road in Edgewood. Thank you. Okay, I did attend the meeting at Legacy Church on November 14th and heard a number of issues raised and topics discussed that I would like to offer some clarification of during my time for matters from the counselors. More substantive issues will have to be addressed at another time as agenda items. Number one, there was talk about the new guidelines for conducting our town meetings. Well, on August 16th, 2019, a parliamentary procedure training was presented by New Mexico Municipal League Attorney, Mr. Randy Van Vleck. It was presented to the Edgewood governing body and the Planning and Zoning Commission. The purpose of the presentation was to assist the town in conducting official public meetings with some formality following rules of procedure. Formal meetings do expedite the process and tend to promote better decision-making. The product of the workshop was a document identifying guidelines not only for the governing body, but for the public as well. This document is provided as a handout at council meetings and has been read at the beginning of council meetings to familiarize all participants with the new guidelines. Number two, there was mention made about the public comment time limit. The time limit of 2 minutes per individual for public comments has been standard since the town was incorporated. Under the current administration, the 2-minute rule had not been strictly enforced, often allowing the speaker to address the body at length. A local resident, Ms. Karen Kaiser, commented during a council meeting that the length of time afforded individuals to speak was not consistent and often varied depending upon who the individual was. In response to this feedback, a timer monitored by the clerk treasurer is now used as visual aid to ensure each individual is allowed the same amount of time to make their comments. Number three, placement of the agenda item, public comment on general matters. The agenda item, public comment on general matters, used to appear later in the agenda. This provided an opportunity for individuals to comment on matters that were on that evening's agenda after they had been brought forward for discussion by the governing body. In response to a request by Councilor Abraham, the agenda item, public comment on general matters, was moved to a position earlier in the agenda so that individuals would not have to sit through lengthy meetings before they could make their remarks. This change took place in August of 2017. Okay, another issue that was discussed was the Local Election Act. The Local Election Act was passed by the New Mexico legislature in 2018 and became effective July 1st, 2018. There were two provisions to the act that the town's governing body had to vote on. Number one was whether to opt in to the new election cycle or not. An opt-in vote meant the municipal election would be held every November of odd-numbered years instead of March in even-numbered years, as had been done in the past. The election would be run by the county, combining all nonpartisan elections such as school board, soil and water conservation district, and other special district elections, providing a cost savings to the town, uniformity of procedure, convenience to voters, with a potential increase in voter turnout. The opt-out vote meant that the municipal election would occur every March of even-numbered years, run by the town at a cost to the town. Typically, with standalone elections, voter turnout is poor. The other provision that needed to be decided was whether to extend or shorten terms. If extended, those with terms ending in 2020 would serve until December 31st, 2021, and those with terms ending in 2022 would serve until December 31st, 2023. If shortened, those with terms ending in 2020 would serve until December 31st, 2019. And those with terms ending in 2022 would serve until December 31st, 2021. On November 14th, 2018, at a regular council meeting,
A presentation on the Local Election Act was made by Santa Fe County Clerk Geraldine Salazar, Town Attorney Randy Audio, Clerk Treasurer Juan Torres, and Deputy Clerk Carla Salazar. At the November 14th meeting, a call for public hearing on the Local Election Act ordinance was scheduled for December 19th, 2018. The deadline for a municipality to submit an ordinance to the New Mexico Secretary of State was January 30th of this year, 2019. Santa Fe County Clerk Geraldine Salazar was present a second time at the December 19th council meeting last year to take questions. Public comments were heard. A motion was made to opt in to the regular local election and extend terms. Councilors Abrams, Holly, and Jaramillo voted aye. Councilor Abraham had left the meeting early and did not cast a vote. Most municipalities in New Mexico have also opted into the regular local election. Of those voting to opt in, about 60% voted to extend terms and 40% voted to shorten them. Finally, I wanted to speak to closed sessions. The council meeting agenda covers various topics, some of which may fall within the exceptions to the Open Meetings Act. When an item is presented for discussion that may be considered in closed session, a motion for closure must be made by a member of the governing body stating the authority for closure and the reason for closing the meeting with reasonable specificity. The reasonable specificity requirement is met if it provides sufficient information to give the public a general idea about what will be discussed without compromising the confidentiality conferred by the exception. A roll call vote of the members present must be taken on the motion to go into closed session, and the vote of each individual member recorded in the minutes. Exceptions to the Open Meetings Act include licensing, limited personnel matters, administrative adjudicatory deliberations, personally identifiable student information, collective bargaining, certain purchases, litigation, real property and water rights, public hospital board meetings, and gaming control board meetings. A closed or executive session is not a secret meeting. So I just wanted to clarify some of those items that I heard discussed last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Matters from the Clerk Treasurer?
Mayor, Council. So I just wanted to let you know, myself and staff attended the DFA Local Government Budget Conference this last week. Many useful classes. What I did enjoy was the TRD update from Tax and Rev. We do have our new liaison, David Monteith, I believe is his name. He actually has been very helpful to us with respect to, I think I've mentioned it before, whenever we used to call in the past, if we had an issue with our GRT distribution or something to that extent, that we would get, I'm sorry, that's confidential taxpayer information, and we would never get anything, or if we did get anywhere else, we would be, okay, well, let me send you over to so-and-so who's with tax research, and then you would never hear back. So he actually is very responsive, and it is good to have him. He also tried to explain more of what the legislature did with respect to the new, with our GRT increments. So they de-earmarked a lot of stuff that we have, and so now the way the system is set up, we have a certain percentage that you as the governing body can just enact by resolution or whatever, and then there's a certain amount that has to go like by referendum. And he kind of explained that. He said he was going to produce more information, and then we'll definitely let you guys know on what the new process is going to be just moving forward. Hopefully we won't ever have to enact any more taxes, but at least they've changed the method. They've changed the methodology with it. Kind of like the hold harmless and how that plays into that, because I think there was some increments that were added in there. And just kind of explain more of the tax structure. So when he provides that information, I'll share that with you all as well. Also, just with the LGMS reporting system, they seem to be worked most of the bugs out of it. We do have some issues on our end. We've converted from Encode version 8 to version 9, so now our crosswalk isn't 100%, so we'll have to redo that. We were assigned a new analyst, and I cannot recall her last name now, but her first name is Stephanie. So we do have a new analyst at at DFA. DFA is finally fully staffed, so hopefully that should mean quicker turnaround times for any issues we might have with reporting. Let's see, banking, I hope to have some options for you at the next meeting. Reached out to several different banking institutions that we could bank with, especially the two close ones nearby. So hopefully we'll have some proposals from them, and we'll get that to you. If I get them earlier, I will email them to you ahead of time. And then I do apologize this month. I did not get the bank reconciliation done in time for this council meeting, so I will have the financials ready at the first meeting of December for October, and I do apologize for that. And that is all I have right now.
George. Matters from the mayor. I've got a proclamation here I'm going to read. National Diabetes Awareness Month for 2019. It says, whereas more than 30.3 million Americans living with diabetes, 7.2 million are undiagnosed, and 90% of the 84 million Americans that have prediabetes do not know it. Whereas we are encouraging those who are unaware of their risk for diabetes to take the type 2 diabetes risk test and learn their risk. Whereas we want to empower those currently living with the disease or already know their risk by encouraging them to talk to their doctor, learn more about the resources available and help manage diabetes, and commit to a healthy lifestyle change. Whereas every year too many Americans experience the consequences of diabetes, but whereas in part because of the dedication of our healthcare providers, researchers, and advocates, we have made important strides in combating this disease, and now we have reason to hope this progress will continue. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John Bassett, Mayor of the Town of Edgewood, along with the Town of Edgewood Town Council, do hereby proclaim November 2019 as National Diabetes Awareness Month in the Town of Edgewood. Call upon all our citizens who are impacted by diabetes to get involved in the fight by raising their voices as advocates, volunteering, donating, and sharing their involvement with others.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
as a type 1 diabetic, thank you.
Well, okay, so I heard some questions put to me there about all the lying, thieving and stuff I do. So I thought I would see if I could explain this wastewater collection line of Cactus in a way that perhaps some of you might understand. I can tell you that it was a long-standing thing that happened over many years, over more than a decade, trying to get the town to realize the value of that last quadrant of the intersection there getting plumbed with sewer, the economic benefits that it could bring to the town. So basically, for this little nickel tour, we'll start here with Exhibit 2. So this was a petition to extend lateral sewer lines into Section 27 with ICIP funding. Jeremiah Turner spearheaded this effort. I realize that one doesn't have it, but you can see it up here. It requested of the town government that they place an item in their legislative ICIP funding request for running a lateral extension into those properties east of 344, north of I-40, and west of Cactus. And went on down there, gave the section, township range, where the properties lie, stuff like that. Anyway, you can see on the names there, you got Jeremiah Turner, my mother Josephine Bassett, you have Reverend Robert Lancaster from the Catholic Church, Steve Williams representing Dennis Engineering, you have my brother Eugene Bassett, he has a lot over there. Robert and I, this was in 2014, he signed on behalf of Santa Fe County because at that time they still had those, where the old fire station and all that was still under the county. And then, of course, we have Tom Torres there from 38B Cactus. You'll notice on his date, it's 2016. So here's a letter that Jeremiah wrote in, and basically this was in July of 15. He wrote in a letter here, and he basically stated to the council at that time that he was there at a meeting with the chamber as a member of the chamber. It was when Mayor Hill was bringing up the group proposal, and he mentions the fact that the man who brought Denny's to Edgewood was there that night, and he'd spoken. And he mentioned that there was, Edgewood had great locations for business, but it lacked infrastructure in some of its best locations. And he talked about the pad sites in front of Walmart, and talked about how they were ready to go. But that he thought they needed more sites like that. Mayor Hill mentioned a legislative appropriation, and like Jeremiah says here, based on listening to people that night and elsewhere, he thought it was a good idea to develop infrastructure in the I-40 corridor area. That's an idea I shared as well. So he was talking about, if a hotel was coming in, it needed to be in the I-40 corridor there. And he wrapped it up by saying, please let me know what your intentions are for the appropriation. I've completed work on the renovation of the Dairy Queen Travel Center. I would like to begin thinking about the next project for my property. It would be very helpful to know where you plan to allocate these funds and when you plan to do so. So that brings us then to this item. It's hard to see, and I apologize, I just don't have a good copy of it. But anyway, it's a map that was brought in by Tom Torres at one of our ICIP meetings in July of 2016. At the top, you have Walmart and Church Road, and then coming down Cactus is those broken purple lines with Torres and Dennis property, Dennis Engineering, Dairy Queen to the left. That's pretty much where he laid it out, and then he's got a petition here that he brought in with it. It's quite similar to Jeremiah's, requesting that the town consider putting an ICIP measure on our list to run a sewer extension down along Cactus toward Main Street and the frontage road. He says the properties in this area have been identified as being commercially viable and most currently carry a C2 or RS zone designation. The area has available high voltage 3-phase power, commercial fire flow, natural gas, and high-speed internet. The absence of available sewer service in this area is proving detrimental to potential commercial development. He has the 4 signatures there. Raymond Lee Dennis, that's his father-in-law. Again, my mother, they brought it to her, and she signed it again, and Tom, and then Steve Williams from Dennis Engineering signed it. So that was the meeting of July 20th, 2016. And in that meeting, we had about 3 of them that year. We took up infrastructure capital improvements program. And you can see what the minutes reflect. Mr. Tom Torres presented a petition and plan requesting the town of Edgewood run a sewer extension from the existing sewer main along Church Road, south along Cactus Road to the frontage road to provide future sewer service to properties on both sides of Cactus Road, along both sides of Main Street and along the north side of the frontage road, generally between State Road 344 and Cactus Road. He stated the properties in this area have been identified as commercially viable. Most currently carry a C2 or RS zone designation. In addition, the area has available high voltage 3-phase power, commercial fire flow, natural gas. Mr. Torres concluded by stating the absence of available sewer service in this area is proving detrimental to potential commercial development. he would like the town to do some research on the cost and identify the best, most economical route for the extension. This, as I said, this was one of our, I think, 3 ICIP meetings that year. We've had questions expressed here about stuff on Church Road. We also heard from people that night requesting the paving of Church Road. You can see Monica Parker came in, brought a petition with 339 signatures on it. She called it about half the voting population of Edgewood, requesting the town widen and pave with asphalt the roadway surface of Church Road between Quail Trail and Williams Ranch Road. And then they talked about putting some kind of drainage structure down there by the sewer lift station where that draw is bad. And she was followed by Macy Fitzsimmons, who came up. He lives down there at Aspen, and he spoke about paving it as well. And that was how Church Road came into play as getting paved. And finally, we have our old friend Jeremiah Turner back for a 3rd year here, asking again for the sewer line to be built somewhere to serve the properties east of 344, west of Cactus, and between Church and North Frontage. Stated he has submitted his request for the last 3 years and urged council to strongly consider it as it would aid in the commercial development of this portion of Edgewood. Now, this is a map here that was provided to us up here in July. It was provided to us by Dennis Engineering. It was a conceptual plan, of how the sewer would go from up by the church line, trunk line, run south along Cactus, turn into our pasture, and go up. I don't know if I can put the arrow on it, but it would turn through the pasture here and turn up here where Main Street turns there. It would also come on down to be able to reach the old community center and the old fire station, all that stuff in there. So that is the area that was designed out, or in this conceptual, by Dennis Engineering. They provided that right there in June and July of that year in anticipation of the ICIP meetings or hearings. So we come to August 24th. This is a landmark day in the history and story of the Cactus and Main sewer system. Quick look at the councilors present. So we'll have Sherry Abraham and John Abrams and Reloy Simmons and Chuck Ring, all present and accounted for. And that night, we sat down and took up the public hearing on ranking and figuring out which projects to make our top 5. We had Tappan Mahoney there from Dennis. He spoke about the different wastewater issues. And the governing body came up with the top 5. Wastewater effluent treatment, water reclamation, wastewater collection, Edgewood 7 Trail in there, number 5, wastewater collection on Cactus Road. That's important. What that means is everybody acts like nobody knew anything. What it means is that night in August of 2016, the council that was sitting there at that time chose those 5 projects as their priorities for putting money into if it became available. Wastewater collection on Cactus Road was number 5. Anybody that tells you they didn't know anything about it is lying to you. It was right there. That's in the minutes. You can look it up yourself. So this exhibit here, 12 or whatever. This is the cover to the RFP booklet that was submitted down here by our old friends at Dennis Engineering Company. They were one of about 5 companies that submitted these RFP proposals. You see it says Edgewood Wastewater System Improvement, Sewer Service Line Extension, Collection Line Extension. And the date due is Friday, December 29th, 2016. So if you're following it, in August we had the ICIP meeting where we chose those projects. Then you look out for the money in that, and then you go toward the RFP here. So this is a picture here of, it's a little odd, but this was in their proposal booklet. You can see here, I'll try to see if I can, like right over in here, this is East Church. That's the purple line they drew on it there. That was one of the ones they were going to concentrate on, and the other one here is at Cactus Main area and toward the frontage road. The same area that Tom Torres submitted a petition on, that they drew a conceptual one on. Comes down here. It says we are in line service lines for the Church Street service connection and Aspen line extension called professional services agreement. They let us know that they were terminating the agreement and would do no more work for the town of Edgewood. Now I can take you to the moment when this nutty theory about this wastewater collection line on Cactus and that being done only for the Bassett family began. This was September 20th, 2017. Had most of a full house there. Councilor Simmons was there via telephone. Addresses the council, the governing body. He's asking about sewer service to a piece of property, stuff like that. Right here, he says he commented to Mayor Bassett. He intimated that night that something fishy was up, that, ooh, look at this. This project is only being done for Mayor Bassett. I just showed you a whole bunch of stuff that showed you that Dennis Engineering was aware of the plan. They had basically set out the original design of it. They knew everything about it. But he got mad. Well, this here is business of revenge. He didn't get the business, so then he decides to take out revenge on me and my family. Now, I sat nice and quiet when you all talked. Let me talk. So, basically what happens is, this plan that everybody knows about, everybody supported, you see it in August of 2016, this council, the entire bunch of them, approved putting that project on the ICIP list. But here in September of 17, a fellow who didn't get the job in that system decides to take it out on me by making this comment that, well, this only goes to the Bassetts. Well, that's not how this should be. And you go on down in it, and we find somebody else at that meeting who picks that up. Councilor Abraham didn't reference something Mr. Mahoney had said earlier and asked the mayor to clarify in the plans which lines cross Bassett property. This is nuts. We shouldn't have that, she says. She knew about it. She seen those plans. Tom Torres brought in a set of plans. Tom Torres brought in stuff begging for a line to be run down Cactus. Jeremiah Turner showed up 3 years running asking for the same thing. If we get a sewer line out into this property here. He got turned down every time. People now are saying, you hear Councilor Jaramillo, well, this is all wrong, this is all wrong. No, this is something that went going clear back to like 2003 when they first put in the line under that new bridge there at I-40. He was contacting the town, we contacted the town, can you do anything? They pushed us off over many years. This was something that we felt was the time had come to do it. So we did it. With full knowledge of the public, full knowledge of the council, and anybody that was well enough to get off their dead ass and come out to the meetings where we voted on it and did stuff. So know, you all that went to that Legacy Church meeting, I guess I was first thing killed and shot and everything else up there. That's too bad. Because my interest in the community is genuine. Started with the very first meeting of the very first ever Edgewood Town Council. I didn't have to be prodded and poked at some meeting or have some idiots on social media corral me and run me out. I went out of my own accord and paid attention to what was going on in the community and involved myself. Here we have a man that basically didn't get the contract to design the system come along and say, oh, well, this is just being done for just the Bassetts, only the Bassetts. I've shown you evidence there tonight that that was a long-running process, involved a lot of people. And like I say, it was over a number of years, and the record is clear all the way through that it was a lot of people involved in it. Those petitions were signed by lots of people. There was 100% of the property owners in that area seeking this. It's time had come. Now, let me see here. One other one that's come up that I've heard a lot of, nepotism. Let me explain how this works. So back in January of 2016, Cheryl Hupperts presented a letter of interest to Brad Hill, who was mayor at the time, and basically said I guess he contacted her or vice versa, but anyway, she was willing to serve on the commission. That night, this letter here with her name, Cheryl Bassett Hupperts, was in the packets of the mayor and all the councilors. They appointed her, and she went on the board. In March, I was elected, and this is the situation that I found. There was a vacancy on there created when K. Davis McGill resigned, and there was Pat Markley there, and you see at the bottom, active resignation. This little sheet here was prepared by Stephanie Muller. There's a vacancy and a pending vacancy. That leaves 3 other members. That means you just barely have enough to do a quorum. Now, why does that matter? Well, here we see the letter from K. Davis McGill, dated March 2nd, 2016. That's the day after I got elected, right there. She tells Mayor Hill, I can no longer serve in the capacity. That means she's off the board, no longer available. Why does that matter? Well, and I apologize again for the quality of the copy. That's all I can find to use here, but it's a findings of fact, conclusion of law from the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had a matter in there from Hillcrest, and they had acted on it, and they hadn't yet come up with a set of findings of fact, conclusions of law. They had a public meeting February 2nd of 2016. They heard the matter and made a decision. So they worked up this set of findings of fact and conclusions of law. And you read there in the yellow, written findings of fact, conclusion of law were approved by the Edgewood Planning Commission February 2nd. That's not quite right. And you notice below it there, K. Davis McGill signs it and dates it 3/4/2016. Now, that's like 2 days after she tendered her resignation, effective immediately. So she shouldn't have been signing anything in any capacity on the 4th of March. Plus, as I said, this written findings of fact, conclusion of law were approved. They were not. Here's the minutes from the February 2nd Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. You can see right here. Let's see. Back up to where it's going. Okay, request for amendment to Hillcrest Master Plan, Unit 2. This was the case they took up. They heard testimony from people. I was there that night. I spoke to it a little bit. They went on down through here, they had some questions. Oh, and by the way, just to back up give you a little sense of it. Introduction of new commissioners, Cheryl Hubbards. That was her first meeting there with them. And anyway, we come on around here. They hear it, they make a decision on it. You can see the motion here to recommend the amendment to Hillcrest Master Plan, whatever it was they wanted to do, send it on to the council. And then down below is a vote. You got 5 commissioners, Thompson, Markley, Hubbards, Bryant, and McGill, all vote aye on it. So there was what we had when I got there was this findings. You had an application that I was afraid was going to be spoiled. Two of the commissioners, Markley was out the door. I managed to hold on application. Now, I served on P&Z for 4 years, a little over 4 years. And we were always taught that, the applicant's a customer, you try to take care of. When I seen this was headed to a mess because there was when you set up your findings of fact, you're creating a record that could go to appeal. So when you have, findings of fact and conclusion of law, you also want a set of minutes that reflect that decision. So when I looked at the minutes and saw that, in fact, they hadn't taken any action to approve a set of findings, and then we had somebody signing off on it 2 days after they resigned, I says, hold up here. We got to stop here. This guy's going to get screwed up here if we don't get this thing fixed. I didn't want any problems with it. So as I said, I talked to Mr. Markley. He was out the door, but he says, okay, I'll try to come back one more time. Now, another thing that's important about this is, again, as I said, you've got the 3 there that haven't resigned. Now, 3 is the bare minimum. If you don't have them, you don't have a quorum. If you don't have them, no other action can be taken. I know this for a fact because when I was on the commission, that was how I exited the commission. I was pulled out of the commission midstream between the time we'd had a hearing and made a decision and when it was time to approve the findings so the people could get their application going, get it approved. That happened to me in 2013. It cost those people, it was a simple 2-lot subdivision. It took them over a year to get that thing completed and done. So I knew firsthand what the effect of a spoiled application could do to somebody. And I just didn't want to see that happen. There's also the calendar. The calendar at that time was like this. I got elected on March 1st. That was a Tuesday. I didn't go into the office. I had to come in and sign something on you get a little paycheck, so had me sign something on that. Anyway, didn't get sworn in until the next Monday. That was Monday evening, like the 7th of March. So the next day was like my first day on the job. That was the day I went over there, and Stephanie Muller was in there, and she had the place tore apart trying to put some furniture into the office of the mayor. Previous occupant had emptied it out, and she took it upon herself to try to find some furniture to put in there for me. So they had moved Dora Garcia. She was sitting under this return air vent thing. They had all that messed up and tore up. She tells me, well, there's a number of things I need to get you, but I'll have to just get it for you later, including that big book with all the ordinances and stuff. So I didn't see that, and the next day, Wednesday, then was that first meeting in my organizational meeting. So my mind at that time was on trying to keep a quorum there to do business. And I did not think anything about the nepotism ordinance, wasn't even in my head. That's where this one comes up here. This is our org chart here. When I was on planning and zoning, we weren't treated as employees or anything. But I've seen the nepotism ordinance since then, I see what it says. So, I just, like I say, it's an oversight on my part, stupid mistake. I'm sorry I did that, but I just at the time, I was more concerned with what was happening with that application and trying to keep 3 people on there so that the commission could continue to do any kind of work. The first thing they did was correct that findings and get that straightened out so that guy could go on with his outfit. And I think there were some more applications that came in along the way. I wasn't able to find the 4th until up in late April. So anyway, that kept the commission going. I thought that was important at the time. I know it was important to look after the applicant and make sure they got took care of. So I have, there was no willful intention on my part of trying to defeat that ordinance. I was in the middle of a transition, trying to make things work. You may shake your head over there. This is how it was approached. The town hall was kind of in a mess. We had to move furniture in and out. And between my swearing in and that first meeting was less than 48 hours. And so, it just happened. I'm sorry it happened, but it was an honest mistake on my part, and we've dealt with it. So there was no effort on my part to violate any nepotism ordinance or anything like that. I was trying to look out for the welfare of that applicant and clean up a mess that I seen when I walked in. Like I said, when I seen this here, you got somebody signing the thing who was already resigned, and they were already saying they had approved these findings and conclusions. They had not. And I just dealt with it the best way I could. When I got done with that, at that organizational meeting, I had to move on in quick succession. I had to find a clerk, deputy clerk, and a police chief. And first 7 or 8 weeks in there, about all I did was interview people. I think I come up with some pretty good picks. But that's how that happened. So, I don't know what else to tell you. I've heard a lot of bad stuff directed at me, that somehow I'm some sort of bastard that just won't, just all kinds of crooked. I'm not. You come into this job, you want to do right every time. You try to get it right. That's one it just slipped by. But it was an honest mistake. And just like with the sewer line there on Cactus, there's plenty of evidence in the record, if you all will bother to look at it, that a lot of people wanted that line in there. It had been coming forward for a lot of years. In the case of Jeremiah Turner, what kind of message does that send? That you have a young businessman coming in there and he's wanting to improve his situation, and he needs that sewer there to do something. I hear all this. Well, fellow comes in like that, he pays gross receipts, he helps the town out. We could do it. Tom Torres wanted it. He brought in a petition. He brought in a map. Dennis Engineering provided us conceptual maps. They all knew what was going on. But like I said, when push come to shove, the simple fact of the matter was, when they didn't win that contract to design those lines, it's not revenge porn, it's revenge business. He starts this thing. Counselor Abraham picked up on it, and she's been applying it on social media ever since. Well, this is just being done for the Bassets. But a closer inspection of the record reveals, in fact, that's not true. Closer inspection of the record proves that a lot of people wanted that in there. I had Amelia set something over there at the door. Because a lot of this nonsense here you're all talking about starts and ends on that stupid social media. So I seen this in the journal. It was an editorial they put out about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I'd like to read it. I think it's relevant to what we see happening here in Edgewood right now. It says the debate over how social media is handling and should handle false political advertising covers a lot of ground. On one side, Mark Zuckerberg's public declaration that Facebook will continue to accept payments for political advertisements without fact-checking. On the other, Twitter's line in the sand it will not accept political advertising at all. As the debate plays out, it's worth asking, is social media designed to give anyone and everyone their 15 minutes of fame? Be it via a slip and fall meme or a cat video, the place to get vetted information on our government and its leaders? The internet is vast, wild, and full of false information. The CIA confirmed narrative of Russian trolls' coordinated intervention in the 2016 election is just one cautionary tale of social media as the new Trojan horse. We don't just invite disinformation into our cities, we bring it into our homes. Zuckerberg may or may not cave to mounting pressure to adopt a Twitter-like ban on political advertising. But Facebook is just one, albeit giant, platform. The real problem lies in our willingness to trust unvetted information from social media, especially when it comes to political news. As long as that's true, we are susceptible to the next platform flavor of the week. And not all will be run by companies with leaders easily hauled before Congress. Beijing-based TikTok, anybody? Expecting Facebook or Twitter to vet information is not the answer. That's an impossible task, especially given the speed. Megan McCardle makes excellent points in her column in Tuesday's Journal. But it's not all 1984 apocalyptic disinformation age mayhem. We're here to remind you a place does exist where facts are still valued and truth still matters. The humble local newspaper. Yes, we are tooting our own horn here. Traditional media has its share of critics and is certainly not without fault. Critics cry bias, others dismiss paper as something from the dinosaur age. Since the advent of the internet, it's had to compete for what was a captive audience. But for those who have forgotten what newspapers do, both in print and on the internet, here's a reminder. They report the news as accurately and as quickly as they can. Every day, local reporters and photographers head out into the community to spend time in schools, courtrooms, businesses, government buildings, and homes, all with the goal of seeing, understanding, and reporting the realities of life in New Mexico. Every day, editors work to ensure stories are clear and accurate. Every day, designers and press staff work to put those stories into an easy-to-read format. Are there errors and flaws? Of course. That's true of any human endeavor, especially one that releases a new product 365 days a year. But we're not nameless, faceless trolls sitting behind a computer somewhere in Russia or China. We live in your community. Reporters put their names on stories, photographers on their pictures. We pick up the phone when readers call. On our editorial pages, we regularly publish letters and columns critical of our editorial stances and news coverage. Here's the one that really matters in this situation. In other words, unlike shadow writers populating social media with rumors, half-truth, and blatant lies, we are accountable to you, the reader. The Journal isn't alone. A vibrant ecosystem of local news organizations dot the state, each doing valuable reporting that likely would otherwise go undone. The Santa Fe, New Mexican, Farmington Daily Times, Gallup Independent, Las Cruces Sun News are just a few of the reputable newspapers offering in-depth local coverage in New Mexico. You might be frustrated with traditional media, you might feel a story or an editorial is unfair, roll your eyes when you catch a typo, or wonder why you should pay for a subscription when the so-called news is free online. But you get what you pay for, and communities without local newspapers are worse off for it. We're committed to fighting for your right to know and to preserving your voice. So use that voice. Write letters to the editor, pick up the phone and call. So you won't have to rely on Facebook or Twitter to tell you what's true, because they've made it clear that's not their job, it's ours. We'll get this thing going again. There's one thing I did forget.
While you're doing that, Mayor, I was just wondering why it didn't go on Maine.
It went to Maine.
But it was supposed to go on Cactus in Maine, not.
It did go to Cactus in Maine.
Not the private land.
No.
Well, they didn't need it.
Mr. Mayor, can I request a break?
I'll give you a couple minutes.
Anybody interested in my lease? Is anybody interested in my lease? In saying a copy of
This is
Let's get back into session here. I've got a couple things. Yeah, it's up here. Now, we've heard that basically nobody can get anything on the agendas.
Excuse me, sir.
I disagree with that. Here's an email right here from back in January from Councilor Abraham asking me to place something on the agenda for discussion and action. Y'all can read it yourself there. And there's my response. 2 words, will do. No fussing, no mussing. Just said will do, put it up. Now, Councilor Jaramillo had something she was wanting to get on there last year, about this time, November 5th. So I actually wrote to her, asking her, can you provide anything? We're ready to put the agenda together. And this was on Monday. Asking her to provide the information that she was wanting to get on there and see if we couldn't get it in by Friday so we could get it on that week's agenda. She didn't get it done. So when they tell you can't get anything on the agenda, that's not true. The one thing that they've been after is EPCOR, and we're simply not ready to talk about it. We're in the middle of due diligence. We're still there. I wish it was done already. I would like to be done with it. We will be getting stuff in, and we will try to come forth to public meetings so you all can listen and hear what we have to say. I have to remind everybody, it's not a thing of somebody out there trying to make this happen. Council asked us years ago to look into the feasibility of it. That's all we've been doing. No decisions have been made, none will be made until we're in front of a microphone. That's what they asked us to do. We're trying to do that. Everything else pretty much, if they've asked for it, I've put it on there. Like I say, read it right there yourself. I didn't make that up. I did make it up, but there it is. I have reached out to them. In this case, Audrey Jaramillo, send us in something. You wanted something on the agenda, bring it in. No, couldn't get it done. Councilor Abraham, well, she had a thing from the water outfit down there. Like I said, right there. She asked me to put it on, 2 words, will do. That's it. So here's that map. To answer your question, Councilor Jaramillo. The objective was to get over to Dairy Queen there. There's a rise that comes up as you go east. So Dennis Engineering showed here, the thing was turned down, and you can see the lines there that represent the drop in grade going east to where the lift station. Now the difference here was they had located the lift station on the other side of the road. The original idea was to make it easier to hook up the tourist properties along here. They wouldn't deal with the town. That's why it ended up on the other side. It's simply a matter of geography. You catch Dairy Queen, and then you follow the grade of the draw down there. That takes care of both sides of Main Street and Cactus. That's how that came to be.
Can't they go on Main?
It isn't Main, that's what I'm telling you.
But why did it have to go through the field instead of Main?
Because that's where the slope of the ground is.
Was it impossible to go on Main?
It's on Main.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is on Main.
It went through the field.
No, it didn't. It's through the field, but it's also on Main.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
No, I'm still in the middle of matters from the mayor. So as I say, what you people got fed to you, spoon-fed up there at Legacy Church was mostly lies. Lies, half-truths. I've got a record that is in there, available to the public to see and look at. They can be bothered to look at facts. It's my name and reputation that's being smeared and slandered. And we've done a good job on this, all the way around. We've taken care to get roads paved. You heard the man get up and say he loved that road. I had a phone call from a woman out there. She loves that. We're getting stuff like that done. We got moved into this building. We got other stuff done over my years in here. We've tried to do the right thing every time. And that's going to continue to be the way we do things as long as I'm in here. A lot of you got your heads filled with nonsense out there. Stuff that's half-truths, just like I read you out of this thing. The half-truths, the rumors, the blatant lies. That's what that group operates on. They don't operate on truth. They operate on social media and the crap that goes on there. Going forward, don't let them scare you up like that. Roosevelt told us back in the depth of the Depression, ain't nothing to fear but fear itself. Laugh at it, but that's the simple fact. That there's nothing here to be afraid of. Looking into EPCOR or something like that, that's not nothing bad. Council asked us to do it, we're trying to do it and wrap it up. And when we do, then we'll have something to talk with you about. So, having said that, I'm not going to take any more questions. I'm done with matters from the mayor. Let's get on to the action items. It's getting late. That would be action item B, discussion consideration. Action on Mayor Bassett's recommendation to move funds left over from the bond election from program funds to debt servicing. Council, you have in front of you the paper from the New Mexico Finance Authority listing out the amounts and stuff. Mr. Torres, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor Council. So as stated in the last meeting, you have a couple options available to you with the funding available. You can attempt to do a special election to try and allow us to reallocate the funding so we can continue paving on Horton Road or some other road that was called out in the original ordinance. The problem with that is we'll have to pay for the whole election cost, the ad campaign to make awareness of the issue, and you can still lose. Or this recommendation to apply the funding towards the debt service to essentially give debt relief until that funding has been completely exhausted. So give debt relief to the taxpayers on their property tax that are paying this. Also, with respect to the special election, one of the weird things that comes to play in this is at the time this election went through, we have a bunch of residents now who have since been annexed in. And there's a question as to whether or not those residents would be allowed to vote on this because they didn't get to vote, or they didn't vote on the original bond, and they're currently not being charged for it on their property tax. So that complicates the matters once again in trying to get the information out and have that hold that special election. And that's something we'd have to work with the finance authority and the county clerk to try and figure out the logistics of that. But as the mayor stated before, if we apply it towards the debt service, it actually still pays that debt service for probably about a little over 2 years. And I'm not sure how they would prorate it. The finance authority would prorate it once the complete years have been full, if they would divide it amongst the other ones, or how they would put that out. The finance authority didn't let me know, but what they asked is that simply, if that's the will of the governing body, that the mayor just write a letter saying, yes, please apply this toward the debt service, and we'll give the residents that are paying this tax on the property tax, we'll give them a couple years relief.
Council, what's your preference?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would like to move that we apply these funds to our debt service and give some measure of relief to the taxpayers.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
So am I understanding this correctly, that for like the next couple years, the property tax that is being paid to this will not be charged to the property owners?
Mayor Council, that is correct. So what the finance authority told me they would do is they would essentially apply it, so it's too late for this upcoming tax bill, but so this would take place for, I guess, years, calendar year 2020 and 2021, and potentially whatever was left would apply to 2022, but it would provide that debt relief for those taxpayers.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Torres, you said something about prorating. Do you know if DFA will take these program funds, apply them to the debt service, and prorate that over the maturity of the bond?
Mayor Council, I'm not sure on that one.
Could you find that out for us? Because that would be a relief for the life bond rather than for a couple of years. Regardless, my motion stands.
Any other comments?
I just think this is the best use of those funds to give it back to the taxpayers.
Absolutely.
I think I showed at the last meeting too that I am concerned about going into further debt, and I don't really, just personally and professionally, I don't like debt. So I think it's good for the town to pay down debt, especially in the tough position that we're in, where I think bond council made this mistake in the past. And so now we're in a place where we can't use these funds unless we were to expend even more, more for a special election, and might not even win that and then be out that money. It's probably better just to pay on the principal for the debt.
In that case, I'll call for a vote. We'll do a roll call vote starting down on that end. Counselor Harville?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Aye.
Counselor Hall? Aye. Council? Calendar review. Next regular council meeting will be December 4th, 2019, 6:30. The town offices will be closed for Thanksgiving holiday, November 28th, 29th. Yeah, the day of Thanksgiving and the day after. That's when we celebrate President's Day. And our Christmas tree lighting at Venus Park. December 6th, down there at the pavilion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I would like to ask one more question.
What up?
Can we add, we have discussion items, action items. There seem to be like some old business that needs to be brought back. Can we add an old business section? Like, Mr. Torres is gonna bring this information on what he finds out. Just some things like that maybe he actually has resolution on that he wants to bring back for discussion.
Bring us something to look at the next meeting.
Okay.
Got a motion? We got a second?
Second.
Motion's been made, second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council.